The descent was long and suffocating. The only sound was the scuff of my shoes on the stone and my own ragged breathing, which echoed unnervingly in the enclosed space. The air grew colder, and the walls became slick with moisture. I felt as though I were traveling not just down, but back in time, shedding the layers of the modern city with every step. The torchlight flickered over strange carvings on the walls, not just the circular symbols, but depictions of faces contorted in sorrow, of people running from unseen terrors, of clocks with no hands. It was a gallery of misery, etched into the very foundations of the city. Finally, the stairs opened into a vast circular chamber. The room was immense, far larger than I could have imagined, directly beneath the GHAR. The ceiling was a high dome of brick, from which a single, enormous brass pendulum hung, motionless. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with the same intricate circular symbols I had seen above, glowing with a faint, sickly green light of their own. The air hummed with a low, resonant energy, a deep thrumming that I could feel in my bones. I had found it. I was standing in the secret part of the clock tower, a place that wasn't supposed to exist, and I was not alone. From the shadows at the edge of the room, a figure emerged. It moved without a sound, gliding over the stone floor. It was tall and unnaturally thin, dressed in clothes that seemed woven from shadow and dust, a style that belonged to no specific era. Its face was the most unsettling part. It was ageless, with skin as pale as parchment, and eyes that held the weary depth of centuries. The eyes glowed with the same faint green light as the symbols on the walls. This, I knew with a certainty that chilled me to my core, was the timekeeper. It was the guardian from Abernathy's journal. A new visitor, the timekeeper said, its voice a dry rustle, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It has been a long time. The curious are so rare these days. They are too busy with their small screens and their loud noises to listen to the whispers of stone. The creature circled me slowly, its gaze analytical, cold. You have read the words of the frightened little engineer. He ran. They all run eventually. But you came seeking. What is it you hope to find, little historian? A story for your books? I found my voice, though it came out as a tremor. Is it true, what he wrote, about the clock? The timekeeper let out a soft, mirthless laugh. It gestured towards the silent pendulum. This city is a loud, sad place. It always has been. The partition, the riots, the daily struggles, the private heartbreaks. So much pain, so much fear. It rises from the streets like steam. It raised a long, slender hand, and the symbols on the walls pulsed brighter. This place gathers it. It is a harvest of sorrow. The clock does not run on springs. It runs on despair. It ticks with every broken heart, with every fearful night. I am its keeper. I focus the energy. Without it, the city's heart would stop. The guardian's glowing eyes fixed on me, and I felt a profound coldness seep into me, a weariness that was not my own. Every soul that finds this place has a choice, the timekeeper whispered, its voice now directly in my ear, though it stood many feet away. They can leave and forget, or they can stay. They can add their story to the collection. Your curiosity, your fear, they are delicious. They are potent. You have so much of it right now. Why not stay? Your story can help power the clock for another decade. You can become a part of the city's history in a way you never imagined. The walls seemed to press in, and the humming grew louder, a siren song of oblivion. The timekeeper's offer was a trap, wrapped in the language of purpose. I could feel it pulling at me, a psychic drain that made my own memories feel heavy and sad. I thought of my failures, my anxieties about the future, the loneliness I sometimes felt in the crowded city. The green light of the symbols brightened, feeding on my negativity. The great pendulum above me twitched, as if preparing to swing. I was being consumed, my personal history being harvested as fuel. I was becoming just another sorrowful face carved on the wall, another forgotten moment to power the gung-ru, the great bell of the tower. But then, something inside me rebelled. It was not a grand act of heroism. It was a small, stubborn spark of defiance. I was more than my fears. I was more than my sadness. I wouldn't let my story end here, as a footnote in a monster's pantry. I closed my eyes, shutting out the glowing symbols and the predatory gaze of the timekeeper. I refused to give it what it wanted. Instead of my fears, I searched my mind for other things. Small, ordinary, happy things. Things the timekeeper would have no use for. Things that held no grand sorrow. I remembered the taste of the sweet milky chai my mother made for me every morning, the warmth of the cup in my hands. I pictured the smile on my younger sister's face when I helped her with her homework. I recalled the simple joy of finding a rare book in a dusty old bookshop, the smell of its pages a promise of new knowledge. I thought of laughing with my friends at the university canteen, the jokes silly and meaningless, but the camaraderie real and vital. I remembered the feeling of the first monsoon rain on my face after a long, hot summer, a moment of pure, unadulterated relief. These were not grand passions or epic tragedies. They were small, quiet, and they were mine. I held onto these memories like a shield. They were mundane, they were boring, they were everything the creature of shadows couldn't understand. The humming in the room faltered. The green light flickered, as if starved of its expected meal. The timekeeper hissed, a sound of frustration and disbelief. "No, these are useless, trivial, give me your despair." But I opened my eyes, and they were clear. "You can't have it," I said, my voice steady now. "It's mine." I turned my back on the creature and walked towards the stairs, my heart full not of fear, but of the simple, unshakable memory of a good cup of tea. The climb back up the stairs was a frantic scramble. I didn't look back. I could feel the timekeeper's rage like a cold wind at my heels, but it felt distant now, its power broken. I burst through the hidden stone door and back into the jasmine-scented alley, gasping for the hot, familiar air of the city. The noise of Karkhana Bazaar washed over me, a welcome and grounding roar. I stumbled out of the archway, blinking in the bright lights of the shops. Everything looked the same, yet fundamentally different. The world felt solid and real in a way it hadn't before. I looked up at the GHAR, its towering form silhouetted against the dark night sky. The clock hands were still moving, but something had changed. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. The air around the tower felt lighter. The oppressive ancient sadness that had always clung to its bricks seemed to have thinned, diluted by the memory of a happy, ordinary moment. It was as if a small window had been opened in a musty room, letting in a tiny sliver of fresh air. I had not defeated the timekeeper, not in any permanent way, but I had touched its heart. I had introduced an element it did not understand. As I began the walk home, leaving the eight-armed beast behind me, I heard the clock tower begin to chime the hour. The sound of the great bell, the gongru, rolled across the city. It was a sound I had heard thousands of times before, a sound that was the very pulse of FAISALABAD. But tonight, it was different. There was a new note in its chime, a subtle resonance that hadn't been there before. It was a clearer, lighter tone, less a toll of sorrow and more a simple marking of time. Had I imagined it? Or had my defiance, my simple act of holding on to happiness, changed the song of the city's heart? I didn't know. I might never know for sure. I was just a history student who had stumbled upon a secret that was never meant to be found. I walked away from the GHAR, melting back into the crowd, becoming just another face in the city. But I carried the knowledge of what lay beneath the streets, of the clock that fed on tears. The tower still stood, and the timekeeper still watched. But its secret was no longer absolute. The clock still ticked, but perhaps, just perhaps, it now ticked to a slightly different and slightly more hopeful. The fate of the tower's heart was now an unanswered question.